Hey team, welcome back to another incredible episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader Podcast. This is your host, Mark Jewell, and today I am joined by Kevin Heikes. He is an AgTech entrepreneur and the COO and co-founder of Intent. Kevin, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Mark, looking forward to it. I've followed the journey and followed the other conversations and appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into this because I've you and I have known each other for, I guess, probably the better part of 15 years, and I feel like I've just been kind of following out of the corner of my eye with everything you guys have been doing over the years, and more specifically, more lately because of Intent, and it's a great name considering our show is called the Intentional Agribusiness Leader. So I feel like maybe you know something about the first question that we have up here that everybody gets, but what does it mean for you, Kevin, to be intentional?
Well, I'll come back to me, but yeah, you bring up the word intent. And when we launched the business Intent 9 years ago, and I think being in the startup space for all these years, everyone wants to start a company that would ag this or farm this, .com, .ag this. And we said, the idea with data and the idea with where we are today in the startup space, what if we flipped the model on its head and we were intentional? What if we solved a problem first? And so the initial spelling of it was IN102. We said, let's be intentional about data. So yeah, when I saw that you years ago had launched the podcast and it was about being intentional, I just, that's the world that I've always lived in, and the way that we've started our business and how we think about intent as a business. So when you think about what does it mean to be intentional, I think the thing that always strikes me is that life's going to happen, right? You're going to wake up every morning and the kids are going to go to school and you're going to have these meetings and life comes at you. And I had a mentor years ago that said, you can either direct life or life will direct you. And that's what I've always tried to do. When I think about the word intent, I think about our business is how do we direct it in a way that's, meeting our goals and objectives and not letting necessarily life come at us without providing it direction. So that's what it means to me.
So good. You can either direct life or you can let life direct you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's super good. That really, honestly, that distills it down so simply. So everybody write that down for your notes. Because it really is like at the core message that I'm trying to convey through this podcast and all the work that I'm doing around intentional leadership is really that. Like you can either direct it or it can direct you. And one of the things I often say on the show is that all the times in life I have become the most resentful are always because of the times in life I was the least intentional. Right. And so when I end up in a situation that I don't like, it may not be my fault, but it is my responsibility. And there's a really good chance that because of a lack of intention, I may have ended up in that situation that I now resent. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's my responsibility as the director of my life to decide like what is it that you want to curate and create and do and so on and so forth. And we have a practice that Christine and I implement called our Living Forward calendar.
Okay.
And it's literally just a Excel sheet that has each day of the year in it laid out in columns, and it's not a detailed day by day calendar, but it helps me be intentional to look forward and see like when are the volleyball tournaments and when is the family vacation and when are the big work commitments, right, and the big events that we're producing, and I can lay it all out on a screen, right, side by side, and kind of scroll through left to right over like what are all the big things that are going on. And I find in the moments, and I just went through one recently where we get out of the habit of living forward, looking at the next 90 days and the 90 days after that and kind of being predictive, that I end up running into doing things that I don't want to do. Right. And that's right there. That's like, I have not directed my life and therefore I'm in a situation that I resent because I wasn't intentional. What I should have done 90 days ago was sit down, put everything on the calendar, look forward. Hey, do we want to do this event or not?
Well, I think looking ahead, and I do the same thing. I have a year-long calendar on the wall because the easy thing for us to do is to plan the days. And I think about, and even the hours and the minutes. And early on in my career, I used to be so proud. I would take my calendar and you take it from 7 to 6 and you could jam pack that thing. And then you went from, man, I don't have to have hour meetings. I can have 4 things within an hour. Mm-hmm. And then within those 4 things, I can do these other 3 things there. And I think that for me, the evolution of again, being intentional, looking forward and say what's coming, but where do you have impact? And I think that looking further out and thinking about, what did I accomplish this year versus what did I accomplish yesterday? You have to do both. But I do think that that is a key part when you talk about being intentional is one, forward looking, longer look, right? Looking for the longer view, but also getting out of that. For me, and a lot of people, it's checking things off the list. That makes you feel really good. And so you can go throughout the day and you can check 25 things off the list. Well, did they make a difference? And so I think those are all things that, as you're talking about being intentional, that I've evolved in and continue to think about as a personal development.
Yeah, 100%. And I just want to say this, to those of you who are people leaders, when your people see you displaying these types of behaviors and you know what's coming up and maybe even teach them or share with them some of the resources like Kevin and I are doing today, these are some of the practices that you do to lead life more intentionally. Like it subconsciously gives them permission to do the same. And especially if you have a lot of young people on your team, and I know a lot of you do, and you're probably struggling to some extent with your younger population, helping them have get into the practice of putting some of those bigger things on the calendar and intentionally setting them, and then literally help them work the problem backwards. This is what I'm finding is a real challenge in our younger generation.
Yep.
Their lives have been so well planned from the very get-go, usually by their parents. Guilty.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I'm raising my hand. Those of you that can't see the video, we've planned their life and they know where to go next all the time. They don't have to think about it. So then once they get into the workforce, they actually don't have the neural pathways often required to think about how do we work that problem backwards in order to get where we want to go.
Yeah, I'll give you an idea because I think a lot about calendars. And one of the things that years ago I implemented is I used to look at my calendar and say, okay, throughout the day, throughout the work day or personal day or whatever, I've got, this many hours, and you could put your meetings in there. But then throughout every meeting or throughout every day, there's action items that come out of it. And so to me, one of the things that I had to implement was how do I make sure that my tasks, and I know that this is extremely tactical, but it was a game changer for me, my tasks and my calendar line up. So a lot of times, and actually every morning from 8 to 8:15, that's what I do is it's actually called Tetris in my mind. I'm looking at here's my day, here's all of my meetings that I have to attend, but then here's the things that I need to accomplish throughout the day. Because what happens is if you put your task, for me when I was putting my tasks on a calendar, the time would pass and the task didn't necessarily get completed. So I think thinking about tasks and calendars is unique. The third piece that I always think, and this is something in the last couple of years I've evolved is thinking about chunks of time throughout the day. When is it strategic? When is it about leaning into others? When is it about business development? But knowing that throughout the day, my mentality should change, or it does for me in terms of what type of work I want to accomplish. So those are just things that I've thought about that have helped me.
Yeah. So it's so good. I love the visual of playing Tetris with my with my tasks. And whenever intent, if intent ever gets acquired and you're looking for a COO role, I need somebody who thinks like you to help us get to that next level too. So.
You're just moving things all the time, right? It's all about resource allocation and time.
Yeah, well, I think for a lot of us, like I'm much more the visionary type, right? And so I do aspects of that, right? And I can do it for myself, but I have a hard time doing it for the team, right? And I think that's where it's important to certainly know your strengths and weaknesses, and I can tell my team that they need to do it, but it's hard for me to go ahead and and enforce it and or teach them even how to do it, right? Everybody's got to kind of find their own way, but I do think it would be a very intentional leader aspect, right? When you start to infuse that into your culture. And and say as it pertains to time management, these are the standards. This is what gets to happen. And we have to, because that's what will make us effective.
Exactly.
Yep. Big time. Okay. So let's learn a little bit about Kevin. Let's learn about intent. How did you get here? First of all, what is intent?
Yeah. So intent started 9 years ago, and really the company started, and we got really good at executing field trials. And when you think about it, we invented a new category. The space didn't really exist. There's a lot of small plot trials where you got down the road and you see, row trials, small plots, but no one really invented this category of running farmer side-by-side field trials. So we invented that category. And as we started the business, we realized that we were hiring a lot more people. And the idea was never to really build technology. The
Mhm.
idea was to grow more field trials because people and companies, when they were looking at adoption and trying to commercialize products, the idea of getting it on the farm and getting farmer feedback was not something that was that well thought of. So as we invented the business, we started to bring these farmers in, and farmers said, this is really important because every year I run field trials, but they weren't being intentional about them. So at the beginning of the year, trials were started, but they weren't completed. So we always talk about in our business kind of three phases. It's people, process, and technology. And
Okay.
so initially we started with people and we said, okay, we're looking at, there were plenty of tools that were out there, but we said we want to run field trials more effectively. Our team, and many of these team members are still with us today, 9 years later,
Mhm.
went out and were able to connect with farmers and run these trials. Then we started using better processes. And what's interesting is 9 years ago, we stood up a CRM that still exists today. And so every email, every task, every text message, everything runs through there because we have this history on farmers and with companies that makes our business extremely vital. The last part is technology. And I think that this is what I've learned over 25 years of being in the ag tech space. I worked with a lot of startups and we would go out and we would invent a technology and then we would go try to sell it. And what's different about intent, and I think is very intentional, is we actually built technology for our team. It's built for us to use to
Mhm.
run field trials to make those more efficient. And I think that's been the biggest lesson that I've taken from this is that instead of building something that you think someone else will use, make sure that you can use it first. And so we started to build the technology, the Envision platform is the way that we run thousands of field trials today. And it started off for us, and now companies can use that technology. And that's been the evolution of the last 9 years of going from running 25 trials to thousands of trials.
Wow, that's wild. How many trials are you guys running?
We'll run thousands. And what's different is that, we have fully managed trials where we'll actually go out and connect with the farmers and carry those farmers all the way through the process. Or
Hmm.
we have companies that say, we know the farmers, we know the process. We just need your technology because it doesn't exist. There's a lot of farmer tools out there that capture data,
Hmm.
and we connect with those systems. But
Okay.
in terms of being able to track trial progress, and the biggest thing is that you get insights at the end of the year. So think
Hmm.
about clinical research,
Yep.
product A versus product B, or treated versus untreated. We know, and farmers get to figure out what products work. And that's really important, particularly in today's climate.
You bet. Wow. And what a great season to have something like that because there's just so many. I mean, we're always innovating in ag. Don't get me wrong, but there's just so many different things going on in the tech space, and the biological space, and the regenerative space, the conventional space, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So,
There is. So one of the lessons, and I use this quite a bit, but there's a word, Mark, that I think is key, and the word is interesting. And so
mm,
for other technology inventors, for other entrepreneurs, I always encourage people to listen to the word interesting because when you go to a farmer or you go
mhm.
to a company, when someone tells you that's interesting, what I've always come back and said is, I can't sell interesting. Interesting means that you've piqued my interest, but I'm not going to write a check for it.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for us to say it's either it's a bad idea, so don't keep going down that road, or yes, and how much does it cost? And I
Hmm.
think that when you think about all these things that have happened in ag tech, is that we invented a lot of interesting ideas, and interesting is very tough to commercialize.
Yeah. Wow. That's a really good way to look at it. That's it. And I'm as you say that, I'm now thinking back over all the different sales calls that I've had over the years where somebody said that was interesting, and now that was a really bad that was actually a bad leading indicator.
It goes ding, 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 ding. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now the goal is to avoid being interesting. And to so what is the what how would we term the way that we want to be relevant, needed?
Well, I think so. One of the things that we've identified is making sure that we're solving a real problem, and
Okay.
so the problem is commercialization, right? The problem is that farmers run trials on every field. The problem is that trials get started every year and they never get completed.
Mm-hmm.
We go through this time of year every year where I'll talk to companies today and they'll say, I'm going to do that next year. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like going to the gym, right? In January or December 31st, everyone's going to the gym and everyone's signing up. But who's going in March? And so when you talk about process, when you talk about making sure that you've standardized the entire workflow,
Yep.
setting the trials up or setting your own trials, it's easy. Everyone does that. It's in October, November, December when that combine rolls. Do you get a report? Do you get insights? Does the company know this is where my product worked and why?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the part that is just different, is understanding the complexity of the entire process and why farmers are key to it, but why the discipline and process is what makes it work.
Yeah, that's cool. So what do you guys do different? Well, well, first of all, let me hypothesize. I want to make sure that I understand this, because I mean, I know a lot of different companies and different friends in the industry who maybe are bringing it or have tried to bring a new product to market, but getting that data come harvest time has been a challenge.
It's
Right. Like they go through all the hard work of doing the cold calling and getting out there and finding someone to give it a try, but then they actually never get the result to show whether, or we get the, the very popular in like early June, we get the roots side by sides, the pictures of the roots out there, which, I mean, just all kind of blend in with it. They're interesting to
yeah.
look at when they go through the LinkedIn feed. Right. But so, well, how are you guys sort of? I'm assuming that's part of the value you then bring to your customers, which would be those that are trialing things and trying to commercialize things, right?
It's insights and data. And if I were to summarize it, at the end of the year, the farmer wants a report. And what they want to see is treated versus untreated, where the product go down, and how did it work based on
Mm-hmm.
environmental conditions, soil and weather. Farmers care about that. And so we have this report that we've created for years that a farmer gets at the end of the year that says this is where the product worked and why, and it puts them on the same page as the company. The company basically wants that in aggregate. They want to be able to see as the trials come in, kind of in real time, it's working in these areas, it's working in these states, it's working with these
Mm-hmm.
farmers. And then also, what is the farmer perception of the product performance as they go throughout the season? But going back to, kind of solving a problem and thinking about why we exist today. Um, and you talk about, in entrepreneurship and how you get past interesting.
Mm-hmm.
For us, this was the turning point. The business, 9 years ago when we started, the very first project that we had was with a multinational, and basically the project was connect with 15 or 20 farmers, get planting, application, and harvest data. And I said, man, I'm a farm kid. I've grown up in agriculture. I've worked in technology my whole life. No brainer, not a problem at all. So 9 years ago, stood up a little CRM system, started to walk
Mm-hmm.
through this process. And I'll ask you, so to get planting, application, or harvest data, and to get 15 or 20 farmers to try a new product, how many times do you think I talked to those first farmers?
Oh man,
Each.
each one. Oh,
Yeah.
so over the course of the whole season.
Over the course of the season.
Got it. Well, we've got at least three different conversations
Okay.
times three different things across 50, let's say across 20 different people, right?
Yep. Yep.
So we've got at least 60 conversations to get started. Now, if you got to go above and beyond that, you're going to do reporting on everything. You've got, I mean, you're talking. Well, we got to be at least in the 120 conversation range at the bare minimum.
It is. So today, and this data doesn't really change. So for each farmer that runs a trial, we typically will communicate with them 30 plus times throughout the year. Get the
Wow.
product shipped, get the
Each
product
individual
applied.
farmer.
Each individual farmer. We
Damn.
have calls, text messages, phone calls. And that's the part that, I go back to the process that people don't recognize, because they're like,
Yeah.
all of us, like we grew up in, I know farmers, I can get them to try this. I can go get product out there. And there are companies that have got into the trial space that have now gotten out because it's hard. I mean, there's an element of it that's really
Yeah.
hard, and the technology is what enables us to do that. So going back to that example, at the end of the year, that was my entire life. And
Hmm.
this company, multinational, I said, man, they know every farmer in the world. They've got hundreds of employees. They're going to look at us and laugh. And at the end of the year, when we gave them the data and insights,
Mm-hmm.
They said, this is the most powerful data set that we have. And I'm sitting there going, man, I'm scratching my head saying this was really, really hard. But that's when I knew that we had something. That's when I knew that no one else was focused. No one else was being intentional about that process, about that data, and about making sure that trials were complete. And that's what's made us unique, just going through that. So I think when you get past that interesting and you go to someone says, no one else, this is the most powerful data set that I have, that's how you move beyond interesting.
Yeah. Wow. That's so good. So I think it's the uniqueness,
Yeah.
right? Like that's the
Solve
word.
a problem. Solve a problem. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, use this technology, use SMS, use JD Ops. I mean, there are systems out there, but when you actually solve the problem yourself and you actually walk through it and you help companies make something better,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you truly find market fit in the entrepreneurial space.
Yeah. Wow. So good, man. I love it. I love the process of just getting in there and finding out like, wow, like there's so many conversations and to truly be intentional. And by the way, there's a parallel I'm going to draw with this in a second, but to truly be intentional just requires a lot of communication.
It does. It does.
Yeah. And then to get that to completion. And I'm thinking like if I'm a manufacturer making a new product, I probably don't have the people power resources available to go have that level of communication, or I don't have that process clearly defined and systematized within my current culture. So I'd have to go and create that. It's probably a heck of a lot easier to outsource it.
The other thing that we find interesting is that farmers will tell us the good, bad, and ugly. And I ask all the time, like, tell me, what'd you like? What didn't you like? Farmers are typically hesitant to tell the manufacturer of the product I liked or so just being independent. And I think that's part of our culture too, right? Is like we're set up to be listeners. And our job is we're going to put trials out there. We know that they're hard. We're going to compensate farmers to run through these trials. But really, really, at the end of the day, what we're trying to figure out is what worked. And that's what they're trying to do as well. And so we've taken the data part, which they don't enjoy anyway. We've taken the data and we've taken and we've put into to a process a way that they can figure out what works and they can then decide. And I think that's what is unique. And I think companies appreciate that well, is that we're the independent collector of information that truly is going to help them say, can I commercialize this through my next steps?
Yep. I often tell some of our clients when they engage with us, your people are going to tell us things they don't tell you.
Yep.
Because we're a third party, because we're trusted, and for the most part, unless it's malicious, right? We don't tell you who it is, but we will tell you what we're hearing.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And where ag is today, and when I think about the startup space, I think I've made that mistake. I mean, the first few startups that I was part of, we were trying to tell farmers and companies what they needed to do. And when I quit trying to tell the industry and I started to listen, that's when we figured things out. And there was a problem that needed to be solved. And that was the problem, is that it was hard and we needed to make it more efficient.
Yep. Yeah. Big time. So the parallel that I'm drawing between that and the work that we do is the amount of communication required to be intentional.
Right.
I'm thinking about it from a leadership perspective. You want to build a great team. You want to have a really engaged workforce. You want to have that standout culture within which your people can thrive, and they recruit their friends, and other people are knocking on the door to come work with you. That's the level of, I mean, it's a lot of that. It's the extra conversations. And I'm not just talking, I think some people think communication, they think the communication required to do the daily work. Yes, that's important. Like the Slack channels that we have going on in the background right now, there's probably 3 or 4 messages, just in the 24 minutes that you and I have been recording that have popped up in the background that are just, waiting for me to get off of this and go address them. Right. That's the day-to-day stuff. But the communication I'm talking about is really diving in and assessing. This is what we're doing with Jericho, by the way, now is helping employers assess their people to find out what are the true learning needs. Where do you feel roadblocked right now? Where do you feel the company is utilizing your strengths? And where do you feel like it's not? Where do you feel like you're getting, paid attention to? Where do you feel like you're getting neglected? If we can know these things and they'll tell us, we can actually help the employee do better. But that requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of asking, a lot of text messages and emails and phone calls and stop out and visits and all those things and lunches and dinners and offsites. It
But don't
requires,
you think, don't you think we have like cool jobs? Like you get paid to listen to employees, and I get paid to listen to farmers. Like
yeah.
people ask, like, "What's your job?" Like we get paid to listen to farmers. Like how much better does it get than that?
hmm
That's
Yeah, that
pretty
is.
cool.
I think it's cool. The one thing I was curious about though, so why do you think that the farmer tends, like they'll tell you? I mean, I understand it's a third party, um, and it's a third party. You're a third party, so maybe they're not afraid to offend you, like with what they're learning. Whereas maybe I don't want to tell, or I'm less likely to tell the person who made the product. And let me just share this for context. So we we were in a coaching program, my wife and I. It was a kind of a business slash spiritual, like mentorship. Okay, and we invested a lot of money in this thing, and the vendor completely under delivered, to the point where we were getting resentful of having to go on the calls that we were committed to going to.
Okay.
And we are 9 months into the engagement, and we found last month we resigned. I just said, hey, we're going to push pause on this, and then finally, and we paid all the money up front at the start of the year, because we felt like, we love it when our clients do that. Let's do that for our vendors. This is a great, we knew we were making a great decision. We had actually worked with them the year prior, had no problems. Then we upgraded, and the service went down. and it just felt like a real kick in the teeth. And so and what was interesting is, like, we're the type, like, we don't necessarily run from confrontation. And so we called out and said, hey, we're done. Like, we've asked you to change this a number of different times. You haven't done it. It's always gone back to this, to the poor deployment. The challenge that we're having is that it's, we're having to come to you to fix something, and we think that you should be coming to us to fix it,
Mhm.
because frankly we paid you the money. And they're like, well, what? And then we said, do you want the feedback, yes or no? And they said, yes, we want the feedback. And so we gave them the feedback, and then they proceeded to tell us in every single way why it was our fault. And so we went through. So we're like, we're giving them the thing, and now, but I think I understand that most people will just kind of shrink back. Maybe they finish out the program and they never truly say how they feel. We're maybe unique in that way, and we'll always tell you how we're feeling, because we don't want, as a partner, as a business partner, I want you to get them. I want your business to grow. I would want the feedback, right? I don't want my customers to not tell me everything that would help us be better, so that we can get better and bring them more value in the following year. So as I step off my soapbox on that little piece, why is it that you think people won't, or farmers maybe don't tell the manufacturer everything that they could?
One of the biggest things that we've learned is the way that the model is set up. So typically, when I look at demonstrations and trials, they're kind of put out through the sales network.
Mm-hmm.
If your job is to sell, your job is always to talk about the benefits, and your job really isn't to figure out where it worked and where it didn't work. And so there's
Mm-hmm.
always this dichotomy of thinking about differences between um, R&D, figuring out which products work, and sales, marketing, commercialization, trying to sell stuff. And we kind of sit right there in the middle. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that knowing that our job is not to sell more product, when farmers put trials out, they always want them to work. I mean, farmers are looking at new innovative products. And they're trying to figure out, this is new. This is going to give me an advantage. This is going to be my operation. Like, they want it to work. You're always looking at, and when you talk about the roots, people dig roots. They We want it to work. We're doing stuff, and we want this stuff to be
Yeah.
successful. And I think that's the reason, is that it's making sure that there is the entity, the culture, and really our guiding philosophy is it really is about being independent with the farmers,
Mm-hmm.
but truly trying to figure out. And I think I'll give you an example. So one time we were working with a client, and we had like 10 trials, and 4 of them lost. And we brought all these farmers into a meeting in Kansas City. And we walked into the meeting, and before that, the client's like, I don't know how to spin this. We lost on 4 trials. What should we do? And we're like, let's tell them the truth and see what happens. And so we walked in there, and like all the farmers were kind of like this. And the 4 knew like they had lost. And as soon as they put the results up and started walking through, they said, we didn't win here. And at that point in time, the farmers stood up and said, well, let's talk through this. And let's look at, how do we, application rates, application timing, where do we apply? Let's look at rainfall, let's look at weather. Then it became the farmer and the company working together to solve the problem, and not trying to be the outcome of where I think farmers get a lot of times, where people run trials because they want to create the 1-page ad that says 7 bushels per acre. That's not what it's about. On my farm, did it work? And if it didn't work, let's figure out why. And let's figure out, can we make it work for my operation?
That's super
How about
interesting.
commercialization? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I think people are that way too, right? I mean, when you actually just come clean and share like, hey, you know what, this is the thing we tried, and we got this part and this part right, but you know what, the last 3 parts, they just didn't go.
Yeah.
And people are generally a lot more forgiving if we come forward with that, as opposed to hide from the data.
Yeah. It's there. And I think that now that we have that, it is a way that the process is just, it's much more streamlined now, but it's one of those things that, again, the aggregate 1-page ad, 7 bushels per acre versus on my farm, I'm looking at it. This is what I can actually see. That's the power of what we have right now. We're now able to help farmers put the right products on their acres now.
Yeah, so good. I think, for me, it comes back to just one of the things we teach in our programs is the difference between the different levels of value that we can provide. And there's partnership level value, which is where we want to get to with everybody. And we want to be in a partnership where your success matters to me and my success matters to you, and we care about each other's success, and we want to be in great communication and help each other grow. That's the ultimate business relationship. And then, but where most of us are competing most of the time is in that value add category, right? We're trying to create, what can we do to create more value, and that's fine. Like, that's great. That's capitalism. We love it. And when it fails, that's where partnerships are super handy. If you don't have the partnership, the value add only matters to the extent that it actually did something right or positive to their thing. And if you only ever sold on value add and not on partnership, then that's when you get kicked out. Everything you're saying in here, Kevin, has incredible sales application to the salespeople and the sales managers that are listening to this. Like, train your people to go out there and be comfortable having uncomfortable conversations with farmers.
It is. And the thing that I was contemplating and doing a little bit of thinking as we came on the podcast, Mark, and one of the things that when I started Intent 9 years ago, we started to hire people. I thought every meeting I needed to talk and I needed to have all the answers. And it took a long time to start to realize that the less that I talked, the more questions that I asked, and the more that we engaged a broader team, the better things got. And I think it's the same way with farmers, is that we get trained to walk in and start talking and say, here's all the benefits of the product. But when you go out and people talk about why our field visits are so imperative, go out and be in the field, be in person, listen to them. Those are where the insights truly come. And I think that being part of that is for your work, for mine, be in the mix and know how the business works will help you as you start to craft solutions.
So good, man. I love it. Okay. I know we're a little bit over our time here, and we have gone way off script today, which I love. This has easily been one of my most favorite episodes lately. Give us a book recommendation though, real quick. What's been one of those books that's really been in the back of your mind that you either recommend to people or influenced you as a leader?
Yeah. Well, I'll start with, I'm a big Tim Ferriss fan. So like, if you want like tools of Titans, thinking about, and I'm going to drive you crazy with process, I'm an operations guy, right? But Tim Ferriss, like Tools of Titans, like going through that process and understanding. And I love books that dissect like hundreds of leaders that take, conversations like this and kind of dissect it down. How do we get trends and really get other perspectives? Because you're not going to take just every single thing. But so that was always one. But the one that I keep on my desk and the one that I would kind of point to is True North by Bill George. And I think it's really all about leadership changes over time. And the books that I used to read were all about how do I get better as a person? But when you start to think about what is my true north, you start to think about how am I leading others and how am I pouring into others? Those are the kinds of things that I learned, that I have learned. And the biggest thing is what I get excited about now is not how does my title change? How do things change for me? But I start looking at others on our team, and that's what it's about is, kind of the empowering of other people. And I look at team members that have been here for 5, 6, 7, 8 years and looking at when they started as, one of their first or second jobs, looking at what they're doing right now. I would come back to True North by Bill George. I think that's one that has been an evolution for me.
I'm going to check into it. I've not read that one.
Yeah.
That sounds, is that a reader or an Audible book? Can you go?
I have the book. I have the book and one of the things, are you using I used to use a service called summaries.com, which was cheaty, but like it'd send you 4 pages of a book. Well, I could then read a book every day. Well, I thought that was really cool because then I would read the summary and I'd say, do I want to read this book?
Right.
And now with chat GPT, I have a whole channel that's about books. And so I'm always putting books in there. I'm looking at summaries, not to cheat, but to say, okay, this is where I am today. And I actually still love to go back to books and actually go in and highlight and take things away from those. But I would also say that as I travel more, I'm doing a lot more on the Audible side as well. But when I truly want to dig into one, I still like the hard book.
Yeah, love it. I do too. I have been big into the Dr. Benjamin Hardy books.
Okay.
Lately. Okay. So his most recent one was the Science of Scaling.
Let's write that one down.
Which, that's gonna explode your business in a big way. But then also Ben Horowitz wrote one called The Hard Thing About the Hard Things.
Love that.
This is literally like, if you're in executive leadership, this is a guidebook. What I love about it is it's not like he tells his story like a lot of them do, and like how he built his business and created the cultures and all those things. It's a great book. But then it's a how-to, right? It's like when you need to hire an executive, this is how you do it. When you need to fire someone, this is how you do it. When you need to, cut your workforce by 15%, this is how you do it. This is how you communicate it. And so, man, as I look around some of the headaches that we get to work through once we get hired to come in and help fix what's been screwed up. So you can just read this book and probably get through most of that proactively and save yourself a lot of money. And I know I've made at least half the mistakes that are listed in that book for sure. So
what's funny is when you start quoting books, and one of the things that our company, we talk a lot about culture, and from day one, I've always used 12, the irrefutable laws of leadership and is one, but then, first break all the rules is another one that we use. Mm-hmm. But I tell people all the time, because I think about when is it time to leave a job, or when people are thinking about, should I go on to something else? And there's like 12 rules. But I simplified it into 3, and I have this conversation, and it's a hard conversation with people, but are you learning and growing? Because I think this is the thing that either keeps people at companies or it's time for them to leave. Number 1, are you learning and growing? Number 2 is, are you having fun? And the last one, are you leaving the organization better than you found it? And so for like my 25-year career, those are always the 3 questions that either I ask myself, or as team members are contemplating what's next for them, go back to those. And those have been the easiest things for me to kind of quantify in terms of career satisfaction.
Super good, man. Man, that's a great place to leave it. I think that's the go back 30, 45 seconds, get Kevin's advice on how to spend your career, leaving places better than you found them. We define stewardship within our business. We have a framework that we teach called standards and stewardship. Mm-hmm. And stewardship serves our definition of stewardship serves to define what our standards are. Okay.
Right.
And most people define stewardship as taking care of what you've been given, but we
Yeah.
define it per the biblical definition of stewardship, which means to multiply
Yes.
that which you've been given. God has never created anything that does not multiply.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And so you can look at you put one seed of corn in the ground and you get 600 to 800 kernels of corn back, right? If not more. And then if you put, a soybean in the ground, maybe you get a couple hundred, or depending on your yield, right? Obviously, but you get a multiple back based on how much you put in. And so businesses get sold on a multiple based on EBITDA and other factors, right? So that's a thing that we're designed to create businesses that way. So anyway, but you think about just the people, right? You are stewarding the team, you're stewarding the people. So have you served as a leader to multiply intentionally that person so that if they do leave, right, that becomes a signature move of you, and people will know you by your fruit.
I love that. Whether it's our kids, our family, our work, our volunteer activities, leave it better than you found it. And
Yeah.
I'll say thank you. I feel better after this conversation we started. So you've
Same.
done your job and inspired me. I always appreciate our time together, Mark.
Yeah,
It's
man.
awesome.
Me too. Me too. Thanks for being on the show.
Appreciate it. This is awesome.